Let's go live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the internet, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a lot to get to today. And as usual, the stream always takes a couple minutes to warm up, but it looks like we're there. So let's get started right now. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We have judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice. And it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency back down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today. We've got a lot to get into. We're going to be talking about the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland, which is under Joe Biden. We have a new department policy that just was released yesterday. They're talking about their anti-crime strategy, in particular to combat violent crime. And so this is kind of a big deal. You know, we've been trying to figure out how to navigate the justice system, the justice world. We've had a lot of fallout since the death of George Floyd 1 year ago this week. And so a lot of us have been sort of poking around. We've done so on this channel. Yesterday, we saw what Chicago was doing with their civilian oversight board. We also looked at Seattle. They're losing like 300 police officers as a result of their efforts attempting to defund the police. And so now we're looking to the Biden administration, and we have a little bit of a plan. So we're going to take a look at it. We're going to learn about who a woman named Lisa Monaco is. She's the Deputy Attorney General under Merrick Garland. And we're going to be taking a look at this memo. It's called the Comprehensive Strategy for Reducing Violent Crime. I'm interested in that, aren't you? We want less violent crime. So we're going to give that a fair reading. We're going to take a look at how that is structured and what they're attempting to achieve. Then we're going to take a look at some corruption floating around our different law enforcement systems. Talking about the New York City jails, there is a new set of indictments or set of charges against 9 Department of Corrections officials, employees, and basically jail guards for smuggling contraband in and for bribing each other, all sorts of bribery charges. 9 of them out of the New York City jails all got indicted out of the Southern District of New York. They announced the charges today. So we're going to go through those and call out the bad guards. Then we're going to take a look at what's going on with the FBI. There's a very interesting article over from Reason.com showing that there was a situation where the FBI got a search warrant to go and break into basically a safety deposit box facility from within a bank. The search warrant just said you can go in and just sort of access this one security safe deposit box. But when they broke in there, they had to, of course, inventory everything. So they start going through everybody's safety deposit boxes. And lo and behold, $75,000 of gold coins go missing. Oh, you don't say. Don't you hate when that happens? I know I do. So a woman, 83 years old, that had her safety deposit box raided, suing the FBI. We're going to take a look at what's going on there. Then we're going to turn our eyes over to Gavin Newsom. Oh, America's heroic governor over there in California, just wrecking a beautiful state. Well, he's in the news because he lost a lawsuit against a Harvest Rock Church, which is a church in California that actually sued him for discrimination, because back when COVID was at its heights in California, apparently Gavin Newsom had all sorts of lockdowns. We're all familiar with those, but apparently I don't live there, but something happened where he was saying, oh, you can't also do Bible studies. So you're locked down, but specifically churches, no Bible studies, and specifically churches, no singing, and you can't even have church outside, even if you wanted to. So sounds pretty discriminatory to me, and a federal judge agreed with that. So we're going to take a look at that. It's a big win for free exercise, and we love it when that happens. We want to remind you, if you want to be a part of the show, you can do so by going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com, which is where we have our own community, separate and apart from all of the other big tech platforms. We sort of hang out there. I post other content there that I don't post elsewhere. So I would encourage you to go check that out. If you like what you see here, it's a great way to support the show. There's a lot of goodies over there. You can download a copy of my book. You can download my existence systems template, a lot of kind of good stuff. And we have fun stuff going on. We got a monthly meetup coming up in June, and we have a law enforcement interaction training that's also coming up. The dates are down in the description below. If you have a question on anything we're about to talk about, meaning if you want to participate in the show, you can also do that over there. There is a live chat happening right now, and so if you have questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to throw those in there, and Miss Faith is going to clip those and add those to the show so we can have a nice conversation. All right, so enough of all of that. One more reminder, there are a couple other channels that I would encourage you to go and support. Very interested in crypto, which is down below. We have the R&R Law Group channel, which is Arizona Law. I'm posting a lot of content there, so if you're in Arizona or you're an Arizona attorney or something like that, check out that channel. Love the support. All right, so enough of all that. Let's get into the news of the day. The Biden administration has been in office for some time, about 5 months now, and one of the biggest issues, in my opinion, that sort of swept him into power was justice reform. It was a big issue in the summer of 2020. We had the George Floyd death, along with many others, sort of on the heels of Breonna Taylor and Rayshard Brooks, and the list goes on, unfortunately. So justice reform was a big part of the campaign. Kamala Harris was talking about it, came up in the debates. What are you going to do? Many Americans this was kind of a primary issue for them, especially if you're somebody who is in a highly affected demographic, very engaged, one of the most important issues for good reason. And I'm a criminal defense attorney. Criminal justice for a long time has been at the forefront of my mind. Now, I've approached this from a different perspective. I have been somebody who has seen the consequences of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, their 30 years of criminal justice wreckage, as a result of all of the crime bills that they've passed throughout the years, imposing things like mandatory minimum sentences, 3-strike rules, first offense. There was a first offense crack cocaine mandate that for all first offenders, you got 5 years in prison automatically. That was out of Joe Biden. And Kamala Harris was enforcing all of that. So I've been very critical of them. But I've also been somebody who recognizes that if we can see some meaningful progress, I'm willing to let all that stuff go. And I mean that dramatically. I don't have any intention of harboring and fostering political disdain towards one segment or one population or one demographic if that's going to cost me meaningful progress in an area that I think is so critically important. It's my practice. It's what we do here at our law firm, is we help people going through the justice system. So I'd rather sing the praises of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for reforming justice system in a way that is progressive, in a way that does fix some of these problems. I would love to do that, even though I know that I've got a little bit of sort of, wreckage, some baggage that I've been carrying around on these issues because I've seen what they've done. And so I'm just a little bit skeptical. You can call me a cynic that anything that comes out of this White House is going to be productive. All of that being said, I do want to give it my best attempt to sort of look at this from a level-headed framework. I understand that I am, going to have some political opinions on this, but I don't want, my point here is that it's worth it. If we can have real justice reform, if we can stop incarcerating people for massively long lengths of time that aren't even remotely connected to the underlying criminal charge, if we can, give more people more freedom and help them when they come out of the system to become better citizens, if we can make our justice system about rehabilitation and less about retribution and punishment, I'm all for that. And I don't care who does it. It can be Joe Biden, it can be Kamala Harris, it could be Donald Trump. I don't care, because those policies can help people. And this is something that we have absolute control over. With coronavirus, there's only so much you can do with that, okay? It's a virus. It's beyond our control. We think we know how it works. We really don't. Everybody's sort of, patting themselves on the back for their science that really isn't science. And it's sort of out of our control. We can't handle a lot of that stuff. We're trying to wrap our heads around it. This is our justice system. This is just laws. This is just men and women in rooms writing things down and putting them into practice. We have full control over our destiny in this regard. So when I see a lot of pain and I see a lot of brokenness in the system, it really, really hurts, because I know that if we just have the political willpower and some momentum, there are some things that we can do to move this in the right direction. And I don't mean defunding the police, or anything, that dramatic, but it's something where I think that both sides can come together and have a reasonable conversation about meaningful reform. So when we're going to go through this story, we are going to look at it in a light most favorable to the Biden administration. We want to give them the benefit of the doubt. There's a concept in law. It's sort of the moving party gets the benefit. When you read their motion, you say, well, we're going to just presume that all of this is true. And even if it was all true, then we start doing our analysis. Even if this was all true, they still lose. Okay, well, then we have to dismiss their case, right? Because we gave them the benefit of the doubt. Kind of want to do that here with the Biden team. We want to see what they've got. It's been 5 months. We have one of the biggest issues in the country. We have the Department of Justice that now has Merrick Garland installed, and we're starting to get a framework for what they intend to do over the next 3.5 years. So let's see what we've got, and hopefully it's something good. The article comes over from, the first one comes over from the Washington Examiner. You can see it's a big deal. This was posted today, May 27th, says the DOJ unveils new anti-crime strategy amid a nationwide rise in violence and murders, which we talked about yesterday on the show, talking about police leaving, crime rates going up across the country, all over the place. This was written by Jerry Dunleavy. He's a Justice Department reporter. The Justice Department unveiled a new strategy on Wednesday to combat violent crime, with an official arguing that Trump's DOJ Operation Legend approach was insufficient. So you're going to see a lot of this, of course. Every administration is going to blame the predecessor. It doesn't matter. Trump did it. Obama did it. Bush, everybody does it. So just, keep that in mind. This comes as the department reports a significant nationwide increase in major violent crimes, including murders, over the past year. FBI says that the estimated number of murders in the nation was 16,400 in 2019. So that's when Trump's in office, with a huge jump the following year. Trump is still in office. In 2020, of course, we get the coronavirus and the summer of unrest all taking place during that time. In March, the New York Times reported that, quote, the big increase in the murder rate in the United States in 2020 has carried over into 2021. So that big spike is still making its way through our country. The outlet said that a sample of 37 cities with available data for the first 3 months of 2021 shows murder up 18% relative to the same period last year. So that sounds like a problem. 18% more people are dying. The FBI's preliminary data, which will not be finalized until September, showed, quote, a major increase in murder last year, with a 25% rise in agencies that reported quarterly data. If true, that's 25% increase in murders last year. That would mean that the United States surpassed 20,000 murders a year for the first time since 1995. So the question, what are we going to do about this? And I mentioned this yesterday. I said that if we actually do defund the police and we keep moving that direction, we're going to see consequences of that. And the natural momentum there is going to make the pendulum swing the other way. So we're going to go from a period of very, very minimal law enforcement, defund the police, community supervising, all of that on one end of the spectrum. And then as soon as the crime rates rise, the pendulum's going to swing back the other way. And it's going to be mass enforcement. Hire the police. The police are, saving. We need them to save America again because of this massive crime wave. And we're going to have to be balancing this again. And we saw this already happen in our history. We saw this back in the 1990s, which really is why Joe Biden passed all of those bills. And he wasn't out there alone. It wasn't like it was Joe Biden against the Republicans. The Republicans were all on board with that. But it was something that there was a lot of political momentum during that time. And we may be causing that to happen again. We're just in the early part of the cycle. We're in the defund cycle that sort of allows unbridled activity out there, doesn't really respond to criminality. Then we're going to see the pendulum swing the other way as Americans recognize that they don't want to live in a world sort of baked with criminality. During a call with reporters on Wednesday, one DOJ official said that the department's leadership, quote, isn't interested in pursuing raw statistics like arrests and prosecutions as if they were the end in themselves. Rather, the official noted that, quote, the ultimate goal of what we're trying to do is to reduce the level of violent crime in our communities. But that may not mean the most effective enforcement plan is to just bring every single particular charge in a particular category, which I would agree with, right? There's a lot of laws on the books. Do all of them need to be enforced? I'm not so sure that makes that much sense. There's a lot of areas where I think that we are over enforcing that are just not necessary. It's not a good use of resources because they're very minor crimes. We have, the article continues, it says, another official seemed to critique the Trump's DOJ's Operation Legend efforts. So we're going to take a quick look at this. Remember when Trump was in office, he was the law and order president. And there was a lot of sort of even criticism about him and his administration during the summer of unrest. Remember, there were people saying back when Portland was torching their courthouses and Seattle had the Chaz, they created their own autonomous zone. So people, many people say that there was an insurrection at the White House, but they also forget that there were organizations creating their own autonomous territories in the United States during the summer of last year, their own like countries, autonomous zones, saying you don't actually govern us anymore. So that was sort of just kind of like laughed at. Oh, that's funny and cute. So it's a little bit of a different, conversation happening there. But the point is, people were saying when Donald Trump was in office, why doesn't he just go clear that out? Why doesn't he just send the feds in to go just take control of this situation? And people like me were saying, that's not, what are you talking about? That's not what it's a local problem. Let the local people deal with it. Why do you want to send the federal government in, like the stormtroopers, to come in and take care of these situations? Donald Trump is not the chief law enforcement officer of every single society, every single town and city in the United States. They've got local law enforcement. They've got local issues. They can deal with it. They've got National Guards. And if they need help, they can call the feds, not the other way around. So there was this conversation was already happening. And so then we have a transition because Trump is exiting, and of course, Joe Biden is coming in. They were critical of Trump and his outgoing efforts, saying what we're seeing now is across the country. These preliminary statistics are suggesting that there are significant increases over the past year throughout the country, which suggests a national level cause as opposed to something specific that's happening in the cities, one DOJ official said. So we need to respond to that with a national response, not a legend type response where we're picking some handful of cities to send significant resources to. So it's sort of a different approach. So it sounds like the Biden administration is now saying, we're looking at a more holistic approach. This is the national problem. We need a national response, which is a little bit different than what Trump was doing, saying, no, this is just like a handful of cities, which we've seen. Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, and some others where there seems to be a lot of activity. I think the deaths in Chicago are, a lot. We may have some numbers here. Let's take a look. We have, during his last days in office, just before Christmas, then Attorney General William Barr touted Operation Legend, an anti-crime operation named for the 4-year-old Legend Taliaferro, who was shot and killed while he slept in late June. The effort surged DOJ resources and investigators to Kansas City, Chicago, Albuquerque, Cleveland, Detroit, Milwaukee, St. Louis, Memphis, Indianapolis, beginning of July. The Justice Department said that Operation Legend start in July. They made over 6,000 arrests, including 467 for homicide. But the Justice Department also said on Wednesday that its strategy included enhancing Project Safe Neighborhoods program. So we're going to read about this. We have the actual memo. We're going to fly through it in the next slide here. But it says that the program was, quote, directing all U.S. attorneys across the country to update their PSN programs, which is the Project Safe Neighborhoods program, to be aligned with the department's guiding principles of improving community engagement, support proven community violence intervention, strategic enforcement plans, tribal law enforcement partners, community measures, and collective efforts to reduce violence. So a lot of word salad right there, right? Don't really know what that means. Community violence engagement, intervention, enforcement plans, partners, community groups, collective efforts. Okay. So let's see if we can tease some of this out. Again, we're going to look at it in a light most favorable to them. Now, this is the title of the document. So a couple things I wanted to point out here first and foremost. Interesting, and I don't see a lot of these. We don't see a lot of administrations change hands where you go from a Trump administration to a Biden administration. So I don't know what proper decorum is or if this is ordinary or not. But I think that, to me, it feels a little bit strange because this is a big issue. So I want to show you what I'm talking about. So this is the document. First thing that I noticed, this is a big document because we're talking about sort of empowering all the U.S. attorneys across the entire country. This is a memorandum for Department of Justice employees, not like a division, not the Civil Rights Division, not the Criminal Division, nothing, right? All of them, like the entire stinking department. And where is this coming from? It's coming from the Deputy Attorney General. So why not the actual Attorney General? Why not Merrick Garland? Why is this the deputy? And so we have her name here. It says via Monaco, I think. So she didn't even put her name here. It's not from Lisa Monaco. She just sort of, scribbles it on there. I don't know if this is standard or not. It just feels a little bit weird to me. Traditionally, I'm used to seeing politicians want to spam their name all over everything. And so you would say, it's from the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco. It's from the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. And if it's such an important issue, why would it be the deputy, not the head Attorney General? And why is I didn't really see much from Biden either about this. Is this the big Justice Department delivery? I know we talked about the George Floyd Act, and Biden has specifically mentioned that. He wanted it passed so that he could sign it on May 25th, 2 days ago. Obviously, that didn't happen. So is this plan B, or what's the news? Or is this it? So that's my question. We've got this sort of trickling down. We have this document. This was written May 26th. It's from the Deputy Attorney General, just kind of scribbles her name on there. Memorandum for everybody. This is the comprehensive strategy for reducing violent crime. Office of the Deputy Attorney General. Not even a name. Maybe they just don't do that over there. I don't know. So let's take a look at who this person is. This is Lisa Monaco. She's the 39th Deputy Attorney General, the department's second-ranking official. She's responsible for the overall supervision of the department. Deputy Attorney General serves as the COO, the litigating policy, advises and assists the Attorney General in formulating and implementing the policies and programs. She's a 15-year veteran of the DOJ. She's a career federal prosecutor, of course, several leadership positions. She was the assistant U.S. attorney for Columbia, District of Columbia, Enron Task Force chief of staff for the FBI, then Director Robert Mueller. Oh, so she's a Mueller acolyte. Principal associate for Deputy Attorney General, Assistant Attorney General. Let's see what else. She coordinated the executive branch response to a wide range of security issues, cyber threats, terrorist incidents, natural disasters, served in private practice, taught national security law, born and raised, University of Chicago Law School and Harvard University. So a little bit about her. Now let's take a look at the full memorandum. Here it is. And you're going to notice that at the top we have sort of the standard stuff that you're going to see in a document like this. It's sort of laying out the vision, right? It's the vision and the principles. So what is the vision? It is, well, we are committed to addressing the epidemic of gun violence. So we're going to see, what they are identifying as the causes here. Remember, they said that this was a national thing happening. This wasn't individual cities. This wasn't like Portland, because that was Trump's model. Trump's model was to send a bunch of law enforcement into the problem areas. They're saying that's an ineffective strategy. So if they're identifying this as a national problem, then what is the problem? What is the national problem that they think that is going to fix this? So it looks like gun violence is in the first sentence. And other violent crime has taken the lives of too many people in our communities. That commitment requires regular review, grounded in research, important moment for reassessment. After decades of failing, preliminary statistics suggest that certain categories of violent crime increased last year. We have faced the national public health emergency, created pressures at home, disrupted social activity, civil unrest as people question the legitimacy of our institutions and the role of law enforcement in society. So we got some other causes. So we've got gun violence. We've got questioning the legitimacy of the institutions. We have the role of law enforcement. We cannot be effective in guarding the safety of our communities without their confidence. We know violent crime is not a problem that can be solved by law enforcement alone. So what else do we need then? We've got sort of three causes. We've got gun violence. We have people doubting the legitimacy of government institutions and the role of law enforcement. Questioning that. Do we need law enforcement? Should they be responding? And they say that the only way that this violent crime can be whittled down is through a more global solution or a national solution. So let's take a look at how they want to do that. Core principles. First, we must foster trust and have legitimacy in the communities we serve, which I totally agree with, right? I say this all the time. We see meaningful law enforcement engagement with and accountability to the community are essential underpinnings. Don't think anybody would disagree with that. We want to build the culture of respect for the law. Think that's also great. Work collaboratively with those affected by crime. Culture of respect, I think, is very important. Meaningful partners with community leaders, right? Department's effort to tackle crime depend on having trust and legitimacy. It's critical that we treat people with dignity and respect. Establish a culture of transparency and accountability and underscore our broader commitment to procedural justice and community policing. So I don't know what that necessarily means, right? Community policing. We'll see where that goes. But largely nothing to scoff at, right? That's all pretty good. I think we can all agree with that. And it's sort of both-sided, right? It's law enforcement needs to engage with community leaders, and we also need to have a culture of respect for the law. So it's the other end. When the law shows up, how about a culture of respect for those law enforcement officials, right? How about not treating everybody like they're racist white murderers or whatever the counter narrative is? It's a mutual respect, and it's for the cops too. Okay, not every single person you pull over is a murdering maniac, right? You don't have to beat up and tase every single person you pull over. So if we're sort of taking those very, very far out examples on both ends of the spectrum, and we're going to use that as our jumping off points. Right? I think this document is sort of shattering both of those myths. Neither one of those things is true. Neither one of those things is in reality. And both sides can sort of improve and work towards the middle. I'm happy with that. We see, second, we must invest in community-based prevention and intervention programs. So we're getting a little bit more specific here. This is page 2. In recent years, community organizations have developed innovative approaches to engaging with people or becoming victims of violence. We've got experience. They say intervention can be helpful. Government partners can play a significant role. There are important investments that will promote safety in places we call home. So not much there, right? Community-based prevention and intervention programs. So I guess, not much specific there. Maybe they're going to throw some money at it and create some commissions. Don't really know. Number 3, set strategic enforcement priorities. So in many communities, violent criminal activity is concentrated in limited areas and committed by a small number of people who are often interconnected to gangs and other criminal networks. Many of them are violent repeat offenders. In other locations, intimate partner violence and other factors are the most significant concern. So what are we going to do? They are going to focus our limited resources on identifying, investigating, prosecuting the most significant drivers of violent crime. What are those? What are they? That's very important. Could be a couple things. They've identified them, whether it is gun violence, domestic violence, criminal organizations, narcotics trafficking, or other forces. So, right, that's the focus. They've given us an outline: gun violence, domestic violence, criminal organizations, narcotics trafficking, and other forces. Nothing out there sounds too out of anything that's unreasonable, I think. This strategic enforcement approach may not result in an increase in the raw number of cases, but it's going to be consistent with their other measures of success. We must measure the results of our success. So we've got to analyze, which is interesting because they just sort of said that they're not going to focus on the raw numbers. Right? See this contradiction here? That's a little interesting. The strategic enforcement approach may not result in an increase in the raw number of arrests or prosecuted cases or convictions, but we must measure the results of our efforts. So it's going to be difficult to assess that if you're not measuring those things, but we're going to take steps to reduce violent crime and to make meaningful adjustments over time without collecting and analyzing data on the incidence of violent crime. Yeah, it's going to be hard to do that. You're right. It is going to be difficult. At the end of the day, our primary goal is to reduce the level of violent crime, something that can be done by measured by the number of murders, attempted homicides, aggravated assaults, and other crimes. And they want to reduce. All right. So implementation. Now, how are they going to do this? Number 1, establish a standing violent crime reduction steering committee. So we're going to get another committee that's going to throw a bunch of people on a board, U.S. Attorney's Office. They're going to ensure coordination between components, budget prioritization, research. So you're going to throw a bunch of people on a board, which I can't stand. I've said this for a long time on this channel. We have enough data, folks. We have enough information. We've been studying all this crap for 30 years. They know what the problem is. They want it. It's death by commission. All right, put a commission. Next up, she's going to be directing the following: strengthen the PSN, the Public Safety Network. So in the past 20 years, the department has launched several nationwide programs to address violent crime. The PSN is the leading initiative, brings together everybody like state and community stakeholders and all this stuff. They want to strengthen the work of all of this. What does it involve? Community engagement. So they want to reduce violent crime by taking more proactive steps to meaningfully engage with the community. As a chief federal law enforcement officer, they must convene stakeholders, discuss ongoing work. They must listen, learn, gain perspective, increase mutual understanding, and collaborate around our shared value of justice and improving public safety. Each U.S. Attorney's Office is encouraged to consider hiring a community outreach specialist. So, look, I don't have any real hopes that that's going to do much of anything. I mean, I don't know what they're intending this to do. I'm open to it. I'm open to the idea. I mean, they're just going to send a bunch of cops into a community and say, hey, we're here to listen to you today. We're here to talk to the stakeholders about your thoughts on police. They say, well, we don't like you. They say, well, we know that. We're here to fix that. What can we do to help you? And they say, well, don't come into our neighborhoods and arrest us. Well, we can't do that. We have to come in and arrest you. So, all right, I guess more conversations are better than no conversations, but sounds like sort of a feel-good response. We're going to talk a lot more. I know we're not happy with each other. We're going to talk about it. That's a good start, I guess. Prevention and intervention. So number 2, Effective U.S. attorneys are problem solvers. They're going to be addressing violent crime using all the tools at their disposal. Includes to the extent practicable to use intervention programs, maintaining relationships, organizations working to connect people with social services, economic collaborative. All right. U.S. attorneys should identify violent crime prevention, increase awareness. All right. Prevention and intervention. Then we have focused on strategic enforcement. So working collaboratively with federal, state, local law enforcement partners. They're going to assess violent crime challenges. U.S. attorneys and their law enforcement partners must then determine effective short and long-term strategies. All right, so not a lot of specifics here. Then we go down. The executive office for the U.S. Attorney's Office is going to provide information. They're encouraged to partner. All right, accountability. This is something I scream about every day on this channel. We must maintain mechanisms for regularly reassessing the plan. We must also recognize that the fundamental goal is to reduce the level of violence. Yes, we got that. The U.S. attorney should assess steps they can gather about incidents of violence. All right. Foundations remain the same. There's nothing really in here. Review grant-making support. So by funding research, investing in prevention. We've got training and technical assistance. We got the Violence Against Women program. As soon as practicable, these components must identify the appropriate ways to incorporate the core principles above into their program. Create an online resource for highlighting funding opportunities related to violent crime reduction. Enhance a protocol for alerting a U.S. attorney that a grant has. Okay. They want to align activity of law. Okay, so folks, I don't even know what this is, to be honest. Let's close this out. We are charged with the responsibility of seeking justice under law. One of the most important components of that responsibility is doing all we can, consistent with our values, to reduce violent crime in our communities. It is a mission that affects not only the people. All right, thank you for your continued work to achieve these goals. All right, so I'm a lawyer. I've never been a U.S. attorney, but if I got a document like that and I was prosecuting crimes, I wouldn't know what the hell that meant, honestly. Don't even know what this even means. PSN, we've got all of these things that we're supposed to be doing, but it doesn't give us any specifics about it. We encourage our state, local, and tribal counterparts to collect and share relevant crime data. Well, what if they don't do that? Okay, the foundations are the same. We've got comprehensive analysis, reduce gun violence, violent crime, separate initiative. It's just a word salad document. There's nothing meaningful in this at all, which is why nobody wanted their name on it. That's the entire point. At the end of the day, isn't Kamala just another one of those career-hungry prosecutors that you battle against every day? So, no, I don't think so. I think Kamala is kind of her own special breed. You know, she's kind of got this real sort of callousness about her that I don't think most prosecutors have, actually. I think that most prosecutors are not quite like her. You know, she's very calloused. She was really joking about sort of prisoners like begging for food. And I think there was a program where they were trying to, I think, release a certain number of people from incarceration in California. And when she was attorney general, she opposed it because they actually needed the cheap labor still in California. So kind of like slave labor, you know, she sort of wanted that to maintain that because she, in her motion opposing the release, she said, no, we need that labor here in California. We rely on that, Judge. You can't let those people out. It's cheap labor. We need it. So honestly, most prosecutors that I deal with are not like that. I mean, that's like a whole different level, unfortunately. And she's our vice president. LT13 says, meanwhile, the guy who set fire to the Justice Center was let out on bail the next day. No bail. Yeah. We have good to see you, LT13. It just is frustrating. Farmer's daughter says, and everyone, 17 Walgreens in California had to close because the DA isn't prosecuting theft under $900. So people are helping themselves. Who does that? All I can do is pray and remember Jesus is still on the throne and to try to be the best person I can. I'm working on my existence systems worksheet. Love it. Thank you. That's awesome, Farmer's daughter. That's very cool. And of course, that is available for local supporters over at locals.com on our Watching the Watchers community. Thank you for that, Farmer's daughter. I know that. The last time I was in San Francisco was a couple years ago, and it was a weird experience. I was going in there and there were people just walking in and out with stuff. And I was going, what is happening right now? And they just didn't do anything about it. I paid for my stuff, though. Don't know why. What's the problem? You could have just taken it. We got Osak71 says, Rob, big fan of the show. So do you think all this talk about defund the police, gun violence, and so on is part of a bigger plan to do away with local law enforcement and bring about a federal police force? You know, I know that is a concern. I don't know that there's a that there's a way that they can, well, let me back up. Here's what I would hope. I would hope that our system of federalism that we have currently, where we have a kind of a system of two systems, a dualism. We've got the federal government and local governments. And I would hope that our current framework would sort of preclude that from happening. In other words, the feds don't have jurisdiction to come in and sort of act like local police forces. And that's sort of by design. So if that, if that were to happen, I think that there would be a lot of stuff that would need to change in terms of laws to facilitate that. But the crazier things have happened. So I don't think it's necessarily about a federal police force, but I do think that what you're probably going to be seeing is a lot of gun violence talk. We see the ATF nominee is now sort of somebody who wants to, the headlines say ban AR-15s. He was somebody who I think was at Waco, sort of an anti-government. He's an anti-government person. He doesn't like people who question the government, doesn't like people who sort of connect with their Second Amendment. So if we talk about this new crime wave as coming through, and we have guns that are responsible for the crime wave, well, what do? We got to pass some Second Amendment restrictions so that we can eliminate the real problem, which is the guns on a national level. It's not a local thing. It's nationally. We have Besamiento says, is this Deputy Attorney General going to fire herself or her whole department when crime keeps increasing? She did say we need accountability. Yeah, she did, but she doesn't really want to measure it all that much. She just wants the outcomes, not the measurement portion of it. All right, so not much there. Look, good effort, I guess. Maybe it's supposed to be that. It's a memo to every single employee there. So see if anything changes. I'm hoping for more. I'm hoping that the Biden people come out, because the George Floyd bill isn't going to pass in its current form. Maybe something. We'll see. Not holding my breath, though. Thank you for those questions. They came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, we're going to change gears. We're talking about justice reform. We talk a lot about bad Popo on this channel. We talk about bad police, bad prosecutors, bad judges. But today we're going to be talking about bad FBI and bad prison guards. In New York City, there were nine prison guards, prison officials, people who were employees of the prison or the jail facility, and they were just indicted. They were caught for taking bribes and smuggling contraband into the prisons. It's kind of like an HBO special or something. We have this tweet coming over from the U.S. Attorney's Office out of the Southern District of New York. They say 9 Department of Correction officers and employees charged with taking bribes to smuggle contraband to inmates at New York City jails. So not like 1 or 2 people. This is like the entire night shift, the entire night shift. They all come in. They're all just Tony Soprano, the whole facility. So here is what the announcement looks like. We're going to go through this. There's some interesting things in here. This is the U.S. Southern District of New York. You can see 9 Department of Correction officers and employees were charged. This was released yesterday, May 26, out of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Audrey Strauss is the U.S. attorney who's acting on this case. She worked with the FBI and the New York City Department of Investigation. They're unsealing the indictments of 9 current and former employees and officers of the New York City Department of Corrections. They were taking cash bribes in return for smuggling contraband. And it wasn't even all that interesting. It was scalpels, razor blades, drugs, alcohol, and cell phones to inmates in New York City jails. 9 defendants were arrested today. They're going to be presented before the judge. 7 defendants in New York, 1 in Pennsylvania, 1 in Virginia. So they just sort of went around and rounded everybody up. The U.S. attorney said that they were responsible for maintaining the safe and orderly environment in the New York City jails, but they abused their positions to enrich themselves by smuggling weapons, drugs, and other dangerous contraband. This alleged activity violated the defendant's duties and endangered the inmates they were charged to supervise and guard. So, these are interesting crimes. Prosecutors and judges, they get super angry when these things happen. Angry, and it's very interesting. The reason being, I think it's actually for good reason, is because we are trusting these people. We say, hey, you are given very important responsibilities here. There's a couple things that you absolutely cannot do no matter what. Do you understand? Yes, I do. Okay, can't do that. And so you've got not only sort of a direct dereliction of duty, they're absolutely breaching protocols and committing a crime, but they're also doing it for a very for a very selfish motive. It's for money. It's just it's sort of enrich themselves. Some crimes we sort of will give people a little bit of a pass on, right? You know, like let's say you get into an argument and you just punch somebody in the face. You got angry, you got emotional. You know, sometimes you just kind of can't control yourself. And we go, look, I get it. He called your mother a what? Yeah, I probably would have hit him too. It was illegal. You shouldn't have hit him for that, but he kind of deserved it. So, you know, the emotions just caught the better of you, and we sort of, you know, minimize that. But if you do something intentionally selfish, like for a financial motive, if you say, yeah, I know this is wrong, like really wrong, and it's a crime, but I want that money anyways, and I'm going to do it anyways. You're sort of, we give you a little bit more processing credit for that. You sat there and you thought about it, you knew it was wrong, and you did it anyways, versus just acting irrationally based on emotion. So when this comes through, when this comes down, judges and prosecutors, they get angry. As we see, they went around New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, rounded up all 9 of them, and here they are. FBI Assistant Director Sweeney said, the 9 defendants charged today risk the safety and the security of their colleagues and others within the Department of Correction when they carelessly decided to smuggle contraband. We shouldn't have to remind public servants that accepting bribes while conducting illegal activity would constitute a federal crime, but when it's necessary, that's exactly what we'll do. I like that guy. We're going to remind you, knocking on your door. Hey, FBI here. Shouldn't have been smuggling that alcohol in there. We have DOI Commissioner Margaret Garnett said, these charged crimes involving contraband reflect the pernicious and damaging impact of corruption. Yeah, get it, Margaret. I like it. Corruption officers and staff should protect the integrity of the jails, not promote lawlessness and violence by accepting bribes in return for trafficking drugs, scalpels, razor blades, cell phones, and other contraband. All highly valued illegal items that undermine order in the jails and compromise the safety of other correction officers and inmates. Thanks, FBI and U.S. Attorney, for doing your work, which is right. You know, if we want, look, it depends on what kind of version of justice you think is appropriate. If you're somebody that just doesn't care about defendants, and many people don't, many people say, no, you broke the law. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Throw them away. That's a legitimate thing. A lot of people think that way, and it's unfortunate, but they do. So if that is your perspective here, then maybe you don't care about drugs or whatever. You know, people joke about prison rape and stuff like it's a hilarious thing. And you go, wait a minute. You know, that person was convicted of an alcohol crime, and he was sentenced to like 5 years in prison, not rape. Okay. We weren't sentencing him to rape. That's not appropriate, but it's still kind of a jokey thing you see about in the movies and stuff like, oh, they're just, you know, dead pieces of meat. These are just farm animals we're just throwing into the prison system, and we just forget about them. So some people will take a look at, you know, oh, drugs and scalpels and razor blades and just say, well, that's just how prison is, isn't it? Kind of, yeah, there are a lot of drugs in there. There are a lot of problems. There are things like rape and horrendous things that go on. But that's not how it should be. Because that's how it is doesn't mean it's how it should be. How about we give people an opportunity to educate themselves and learn things about, you know, discipline and, you know, faith and religion and all sorts of, you know, reading, writing and thinking and learning skill sets so that when they come out, they're in a better position. They're not in there trafficking drugs, stabbing each other with razor blades, conducting drug trafficking through their cell phones, drinking alcohol. If we're going to want a system of rehabilitation and not retribution, we got to make sure this kind of garbage doesn't happen. So when the law enforcement people step up and they punish their own and they root out this corruption and this malfeasance inside the jails, I am all for it. Hats off. Well done, everybody over there. Now let's take a look at what is going on with the different indictments. We have Miguel Compress of New York. What did he do? He's a correction officer. He smuggled scalpels, synthetic cannabinoids, and often referred to as K2 or spice. Oh man, that's some gnarly stuff. There was that guy who ate somebody's face off taking that. Like literally, don't look at that picture on Google. Don't. Cell phones and large quantities of cigarettes. He got $6,000 for that. So it's not that much money. Not that much money for federal charges. Charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit federal crimes, bribery, maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. 10 years for $6 grand. All right. Well, so that was Miguel Compress. Let's take a look at Tamika Lewis. She's 41. She comes from Brooklyn. What did she? Oh, she also brought some spice. She got, wow, $40,000 in bribes. So that is significantly more. Miguel got a raw deal. Tamika must have had that good K2. Now, from at least in or about June 2019 up through and including September 2020. So over a year, charged with 1 count, conspiracy to commit federal crimes, maximum sentence, 10 years, 20 years, and another 20 years. But at least she got 40 grand out of it. That's, you know, more significant. We got Daryl Diaz, who was 33. He got $8,000, large quantities of cigarettes, into the Rikers Island prison. He's got another conspiracy count, honest services, wire fraud, maximum 20 years in prison for him. We got Jasmine Reed. She's 34. She comes from Virginia, so they went and got her there. Abused her position, also smuggled a razor, K2, marijuana, cigarettes, a cell phone, other contraband, cash bribes. She went from September 2019 to December 2019. So you know what probably happened? Somebody inside the prison just turned. They just turned everybody, and then were just kind of watching it going on. They probably have so much evidence on all 9 of these people. It's not even going to be fair for him. She is charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit federal crimes. 5 years in prison, up to 20 years on another one. Then we get over to Tamaine Pelzer, 45, correction officer. He got another $8,000. He went from August 2019 to February, so not that long for him. Charged with 1 count, 10 years in prison. We got Brian Harrell, 60. He got $6,500. He was smuggling stuff through the Manhattan Detention Complex. So what does he have? May 2020 to June. Oh, man, just 1 month. So it's a good month, I would say. $6,500 for that month is a good month, but not worth 10 years in prison or 20 years over here. We got 3 more. We've got Rashawn Asana, 25, out of New York. He got $7,500. Contraband, a cigarette, cell phone, same stuff. Robert Balducci, 33. He got $5,000. Did he bring anything else interesting? No, razor blades, marijuana, 10 years looking for him. And then Jonathan Garrett's our last one. He's 32. Also brought in the K2. Ooh, he brought in methamphetamine. Yeah. That's the hard stuff there. Methamphetamine, he got $5,000 for that. Federal crimes, again, another 10 to 20 years. So we have this all being prescribed by Congress, the penalties. Mr. Strauss praised the outstanding work of the FBI and the DOI. They're going through the public corruption units, and that's it. Merely accusations. Remember, the defendants are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty, which, as I said, is probably going to be quite easy in this case. Going to guess they have a lot of evidence, probably because people inside the prison just turned on them and just said, yeah, this is what's going on. Yeah, come watch. Watch. Here comes Jonathan Garrett. Here comes Rashawn Asana. Watch what's happening. Marijuana, and they just watch the whole thing. Video, audio, cash exchanges, the whole thing. So they're probably going to take plea deals, and they'll close those out relatively quickly. We have, though, so the FBI did a nice job on that one. But on this one, something's going on here. The FBI went through a woman's safety deposit box without a warrant. It's kind of questionable. What's going on here? Let's take a look at this story over from Reason.com. We're going to look at some photos, in fact, of the FBI digging through this woman's box. It's box 8. Oh my gosh, that was box 8309 was just one of the hundreds of safety deposit boxes that ended up in the government's possession when federal agents raided a private vault in Beverly Hills. Federal agents took those boxes, as Reason previously reported, even though they did not have a warrant for them or their contents. So how'd they get them then? The business that housed them is called U.S. Private Vaults. They are suspected of conspiracy to distribute the drugs and launder money and avoid mandatory deposit reporting requirements. But the unsealed warrant that authorized the raid granted FBI permission to seize only the business's computers, money counters, security cameras, and large steel frames that effectively act as bookshelves. So that's it, right? And when we talk about warrants, we have specificity in there. It's not like, hey, judge, I want to just go see what Robert Gruler's doing. Judge goes, yeah, whatever you need. Office, home, mom's house, brother, whatever you need. Cell phone, emails, go hog wild. Have a field day. Sometimes they will grant enough permission and enough specificity to do that. But traditionally, it's specificity. It's this hour, these hours, these locations, and things like that. So we saw in the warrant that they are defining those things for us: computers, money counters, security cameras, steel frames, etc. Per FBI rules, however, the boxes could not be left unsecured in the vault after the raid had been completed, right? So the agents had to take them into custody too. So here's what happened. They get a warrant. Go in and seize this one safety deposit box. Judge says no problem at all. Now, the judge knows how this works. FBI knows how this works. Everybody knows how this works. So, of course, they're not going to call U.S. Private Vaults and say, listen, we just got a warrant to go and seize box, let's say 8310 in your facility. So we're going to come and do that right now, right? Because they would go, oh, perfect, 8310. Well, that's empty now. Like right now, like I just sent somebody down there to throw that out and remove that. So they would never do that. So what do they have to do? They have to do this surprise raid. They have to show up, guns blazing. Hey, we're the FBI. We have access to all this information. So typically they break open everything, right? They got to break in there because it's an unannounced visit. When they do that, now they've compromised the security of the vault. They've compromised all of the other safety deposit boxes. Everything has been jeopardized. So now what do? They do what's called an inventory search or an inventory sort of analysis. It's a summation of everything that's in there because they don't want to be responsible. If they leave, if they just jeopardize, they broke the security of this facility and then they leave and somebody comes in there and steals everything, well, is the FBI on the hook for leaving it open? So no, they just sort of take everything and they inventory it. An analogy here would be like if you're driving a car and you get stopped and you get pulled over for a DUI. They can pull you out of the car. They can sort of search your wingspan, your area around you. But let's say, for example, they can't get into the trunk because it's locked or whatever, and you give them no permission to search your trunk. So then what do? They impound your car. Well, how do they search your trunk then if it's been inventoried? They couldn't search it because you couldn't touch it because it's not necessary. It's not in your wingspan. But when they arrest you and impound your car, now they do what's called an inventory search because they got to inventory the car so that when you get out of custody, you don't go back to the police and say, you stole all my stuff in my car. So they open everything up and they do an inventory of it and they write it all out on a list and say, hey, this is everything that we had. Here it is. We have it safe and sound. If you want to come get it, it's available for you. But the problem is, what happens when the list doesn't match what was there? What happens when they say, oh, no, that wasn't there? And we say, oh, it sure as heck was. It's a big problem. And they've sort of caused this on their own. They know that the warrant didn't give them access into that box, but they know by breaking into the other box that they've broken the security of the entire facility. And so they're responsible for the contents of the other boxes, which then will lead them to the belief that they can open these up and rummage through them, which is exactly what they did. So per the FBI rules, they could not leave them unsecured. So the agents had to take them into custody. In the days following the raid, the agents were tasked with identifying the boxes, innocent owners, so their valuables could be returned. Should have been a relatively straightforward process, but it was not. More than 2 months after the raid, Box 8309 and its contents is one of hundreds of safe deposit boxes that remain in FBI custody, even though the owners have been charged with no crimes. The box is now at the center of a lawsuit filed last month in U.S. District Court. The story of what happened after it entered FBI custody, a story told through screenshots from a video now entered as evidence, should infuriate anyone who believes in constitutional limits on law enforcement. We're going to go through them. The screenshots, some of which are presented below, show what attorneys representing Box 8309 and its owners say is, quote, an illegal search, falling outside of what was authorized by the warrant against U.S. private vaults. There are a few things to keep in mind before we go through these. First and foremost, according to this article, is the fact that the FBI's warrant for the vaults explicitly said, quote, does not authorize a criminal search or seizure of the contents of the safe deposit boxes. Okay. Second, recall the FBI did have a good reason for opening Box 8309 and the rest as agents needed to find a way to identify the owners. All right. So that's why they say they opened them. The question then is whether agents went beyond what is necessary to identify the owner. In the case of Box 8309, it certainly appears that they did. All right. So they break in. The warrant says you cannot do a search or seizure of the contents of the safety deposit boxes. Search or seizure. It's right there in quotes. No authorized search or seizure. Okay. But it sounds like they have to open the boxes so they can see who it belongs to because it's just Box 8309. They don't know who it belongs to. So as long as they can identify it, that should be the end of the inquiry. Open it, identify it, end of the inquiry, right? Let's take a look at what happened. In the first screenshot, an FBI agent is tasked with identifying Box 8309's owner. They can be seen removing the box from the, quote, nest to open it. Notice the paper taped to the lid of the box, which will become significant in a moment. So you can see this is sort of the nest. This is the box that we're talking about, Box 8309. And at the right on top of it, we see this white envelope here, right? Very, very prevalent. Let's take a look at what that says. Next, the agent opens the letter taped to the top of the box, which contains all the necessary information to identify the owner. Identified in legal filings as Linda R. She's an 80-year-old woman. She stored a significant portion of her retirement and her savings in box 8309. It's also going to be significant too. We can see over here, we just open up the letter, right? So this is coming from body camera footage on one of the FBI agents, opens the letter, sees right here, it's got a lot of written text here, identifying who this belongs to. Here's the person's name. There's a copy of the driver's license. Name, address, 80-year-old woman named Linda. All right, so that should be the end of the inquiry. Okay, you're not allowed to search. The warrant said that. No searching. You said that you got to open this puppy up so you can identify who it belongs to. You just did it. Right on the outside of it, it came out of the nest, okay, which you have to open. So no security questions there. Opens it up. Knows exactly who it belongs to. End of inquiry. No searches, no seizures. Return it to Linda R. Let's see. The documents taped to the lid even include a copy of her driver's license. There can no longer be any doubt about the owner of the contents of the box, right? Letter, driver's license. So what happens? The agent, he just decides to open the lid and take a look inside. So that's what he does. Pulls it right out, sets it right here, cracks open the lid, starts ripping open sealed envelopes inside the box, 8309. Starts ripping them open. Looks like a U.S. Postal Service box. Rips that open again. Keep in mind that the warrant allowed the FBI to seize these boxes explicitly, forbade federal agents from searching or seizing the contents. Okay? It allowed them to seize these boxes, said you cannot search or seize the contents of the safe. The agents, they keep digging anyways. All right, so it sounds like they're allowed to take the boxes so they can return them, but they can't open them up. So he opens it up. Agents keep digging anyways, eventually tearing open a heavy-duty envelope that contains an unknown number of what appear to be gold coins. See this here? Gold coins. Nice hedge against inflation. Not as convenient as cryptocurrency, though. But as the ransacking of box 8309 continues, the video appears to show at least one of Linda's coins falling to the ground. Oh no, look at that guy. According to an amended complaint filed last week, the search of the box was conducted in a shambolic and disorganized manner. No surprise that items were misplaced, lost, or worse. Look at that. A very valuable gold coin falling to the ground. Oh no. The agents, they continue digging through the box. They open more sealed envelopes. They're photographing the contents. Here's some more. Opening up this one. Here's another one, taking photographs. They're uncovering more stashes of valuable coins. Right? These are kids in a candy shop having a lot of fun with this. Then we see here at some points, it's not really clear what they're doing because they're out of frame of the video. So they set up a camera. They're processing all of these boxes. Got a number of people moving stuff around down here. His back's turned. Who knows what's going on the other side of their torsos. When it's all finished, the FBI's official documentation detailing the contents of the box makes note of only miscellaneous coins. Okay, now you're going to see what I'm talking about here. We're going to look at the inventory list that they write and watch what they put on here. We're talking about very valuable gold coins. Okay, we're not talking about change dish in your car. He just writes miscellaneous coins. Okay, like you just went through the drive-thru at McDonald's and you just throw your change in your coin dish. No, these are valuable gold bullion. What are you talking about? Without any specific amounts or other identification of the coins. Okay, with serial numbers or whatever's on there to identify them. In the lawsuit, Linda's attorneys argued that the FBI's search of the box resulted in up to $75,000 of valuable coins being misplaced. Though it is difficult to know for sure due to what Linda's attorneys call the chaotic and slapdash manner in which the box was examined. In separate legal filings, attorneys representing Linda and others caught up in the raid argued that the FBI rifled through hundreds of safety deposit boxes so they could, quote, use any information gleaned in the claims process in order to conduct criminal investigations. These pieces of garbage. Recent developments seem to suggest that's true, as the DOJ has filed forfeiture motions against more than 400 of the safe deposit boxes it seized from U.S. private vaults. In some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars are being seized by the government despite no criminal charges being filed against the owners of the boxes. They are just robbing people. I mean, actually robbing people. You know, when you watch those old shows or those shows that are set sort of in the Middle Ages, and you know the corrupt sheriff comes in and steals everything from the poor shop owner. That's what's happening, right? And I don't know if these are poor shop owners or rich shop owners or whatever, but this is the government coming in, taking private property, not charging anybody with crimes, doing it in violation of a federal warrant and getting away scot-free with it. We now know that this happened after the warrant for the raid explicitly exempted the contents of the safety deposit boxes. So they're investigating for crimes that they had no authority to investigate, this would be if they charge somebody on this, is going to be a catastrophic problem. This would be a suppression motion all day. I think you'd win it all day because they actually violated a federal warrant. So if they actually move forward with criminal charges, hopefully those people get good attorneys. In their own filings, prosecutors allege that only some of the company's customers were, quote, honest citizens. But contend that the majority of the box holders are criminals that use their anonymity to hide their ill-gotten wealth. That's not your decision to make. You got to have some evidence before you make those allegations. You can't just go in and seize a bunch of stuff and then rummage through it and say, oh, well, we found that's a problem and that's a problem too. You got to have the evidence before you seize the stuff, okay? Not the other way around. Oh my gosh, these are prosecutors. Prosecutors are putting that in their own documents. Box 8309 is not one of the boxes that the feds are now seeking to seize, being an extremely circumspect forfeiture process. They're not alleging that the box's owner is suspected of committing a crime or that her gold coins are somehow evidence of ill-gotten wealth. According to legal filings, attorneys representing her say that the government has promised to return her money. But they note it has refused to say how much it took, how much it will return, exactly how long it will take. The government's apparent inability to locate and return the coins it seized does not inspire confidence in the smooth return of her money. I wonder if they're investigating that. I wonder if they're getting warrants for any of those agents who are there counting those coins, dropping them all over the place. Maybe they're going to go raid their houses and see if they've got some gold bullion in there that they maybe transferred to somebody else. Do you think they're going to do that? Or are they going to be spending all of their time on Twitter trying to find grandma who is wandering around the Capitol building? I think we know the answer to that. Let's take a look at the complaint that was filed here. Here you can see search and seizure of box is the claim. This is a forfeiture type of a claim against the United States of America. Here's the complaint filed out of California, Western District. Here are the attorneys. Look like they're coming out of Los Angeles. We've got Benjamin, Gluck, Van Dyke, and Solomon and Bowman over there at a firm out in California. So we see here, it says, please take notice. We have the matter. We're going to be filing this search and seizure chain of custody claim. The motion is based on the notice. Okay, nothing much there. Introduction. Dr. Linda L.R. is a doctor, 80 years old. About 1 month ago, the government seized her retirement savings from her box at U.S. private vaults. Counsel demanded its return. Government agents met with counsel and returned some of it, but the government failed to account for the return of 40 1-ounce gold coins. 40! Not 2. It's not, we dropped one and it rolled under the couch. Let me go get it. 40 of them gone. $75,000. The agents told Dr. R that they did not know anything about the missing coins. No, of course not. When counsel asked the agents for a copy of their inventory of Dr. R's box, the agents provided a property receipt based on their inventory for Dr. R's box that describes the property as only miscellaneous coins with no indication of types or quantities. I'm going to show you this here soon. Counsel immediately contacted the lead attorney, advised him of the missing items. Counsel also asked the attorney for a proper inventory of what you got. The U.S. attorney represented that to the magistrate judge and the court that this matter was required pursuant to the policies. That, in other words, they had to seize that to protect the agency from claims of theft, right? We talked about that. Government has not responded to any of these communications. The government's seizure of her savings has already caused her more stress and anxiety, right? She's 80. She needs that. The missing coins and lack of any kind of inventory, indeed any lack of response at all from the government, only adds to her injury. And this happens a lot, folks. It happens all the time. They seize guns, they seize cars, they seize houses, and it's really difficult to communicate with them because it's a kind of a different type of a claim. It's a forfeiture claim versus a criminal claim, and it's a whole different convoluted area of law that the government has really sort of written for themselves. They've written rules that make it easy for them to win, which is why people talk about this all the time, forfeiture reform. We see here the missing coins. For now, Dr. R seeks an order that the government provide her with all records reflecting how Box 8309 and its contents were searched, seized, and handled, including all inventories, all videos, all recordings of these processes, all chain of custody documentation, and all written protocols. And so chain of custody is the idea that you're connecting the chain one link to the other. So person A, FBI agent A, took the coins, gave them to FBI agent B. FBI agent B took them and transported them back to the crime lab, gave them to FBI agent C, who put them in the evidence locker. FBI agent D came back out and took them, and you sort of connect that. What's the log? And there should be a connection at every single one of those points. John gave it to Billy. Billy gave it to Mark. Mark gave it to John. And you connect them all. What is that chain? What does it look like? Dr. R submits that this material will prove that the government took over $70,000 from her without probable cause, as he had to give it back. With these records in hand, Dr. R will be at least able to know that she will ultimately be able to obtain relief either through the return of the missing coins or through compensation. Here is the list, okay? So this is what she got. The U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI, they came in, seized all of her stuff, put her name on here, Linda R., give her address. Here's a receipt for your property, Grandma. Take a look. Here's what we got for you. We took one item of what? Miscellaneous coins. Okay. We got another item of miscellaneous coins times 9. And then we have miscellaneous packaging materials. And then we have Shakespeare down here writing us really, really solid inventory. Says something, star claim of 220 tubes of 1 ounce $50 gold American Eagle coins with red tops on them. April 21st, 2021, 1:52 a.m., signed off by Cody Bescript with the FBI. All right, so plus a chain of 222 coins, $50 coin American Eagle coins. These coins, which are very important, right? The 1 ounce gold coins, $70,000, just miscellaneous coins, like you got a bunch of pennies and nickels and dimes. All right, conclusion says that the government concedes that must return retirement savings, but it has yet to account for approximately $75,000 of that savings. It has not provided any proper receipt. So the government says, yeah, you're getting your money back, but you're getting $75,000 less of it back. They haven't inventoried it or anything. For now, she's not seeking damages for their loss and even an order for their return. She wants an order requiring that the government give her what she asked for, specifically the material, the inventory material, and all of the information. So this is great. They're not even really asking for the money at this time. They're saying, nah, we're good on the money. Give me the materials. I want to see what happened here, which is great, and I would love for them to get it. Let's take a look at some questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. First up is Boxy Punk Chick in the house. What's up, Boxy? Says, isn't it just the common thing to expect the FBI to be corrupt? They claim they are not government employees when in reality, they claim they are government employees when in reality they are not. They're an organization that gets paid by government funding. How does that not allow for corruption? Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's extremely corrupt. I mean, we've seen this. We've seen this. It doesn't really matter what direction you go. We've seen it both directions. We've seen an inquisition into Donald Trump that I didn't think have any basis. We saw covering for Hillary Clinton where James Comey came out and said, well, the statute, the criminal statute for that says something like, gross negligence. If you do something that's grossly negligent, we can charge you with a crime. And so the question was, did Hillary Clinton with her emails reach that threshold? And so in one memo, the story goes, he said, yeah, she did. Then in a different memo, he changed gross negligence to something like extreme carelessness. And guess what? If you change those words, it doesn't fit the statute anymore, so you can't charge her with a crime. So it's now not just gross negligence, it's extremely careless. Which to me, if you do something that's extremely careless, kind of sounds like gross negligence. But we're mincing words, we're splitting hairs, because she is part of that established power structure. And when somebody like Donald Trump threatened that power structure, well, they circled the wagons to make sure that didn't happen. We saw all of this happening with the two FBI agents, the two lovebirds who were texting, we're going to keep him out of power. And, what's the guy's name? I can't remember right now, but he's got that sort of devilish look, that he gave when he was called in front of Congress to testify. And so they've got a political agenda, just like any other government organization does. And when you have somebody that goes in there and rocks the boat, they're not going to let that happen. And they're very powerful. They're going to effectuate what they can to achieve their ends. We have Nadar Blasier says, I wonder if any of these corrections officers worked where Epstein suicided himself. It's a good question. Now, those two, we have not talked about that here yet. That's in my queue. I'm waiting on a Maxwell update because there's a lot of activity going on the Ghislaine Maxwell case, a lot. And it's like, I have to pace myself on the updates because we could talk about her case every day for 3 hours. I mean, there's stuff going on every day. It's crazy. But so we're sort of pacing ourselves. But yeah, two of the guards who were involved in the Epstein case, the two guards who were supposed to be making sure that nothing happened to him, have pled guilty to crimes for their negligence in that case. So we're going to cover that at some point. It's just in the queue. Boxy Punk Chick says, I think there is missing information. How were they to know what was supposed to be in the box? In order to say what people say what's missing, there would have to be logs of everything in there for to say, yes, it was missing. Or it is he said, she said. Yeah. So I think you're right. And we don't know that. You're correct. We don't know what Dr. L has. Okay. We don't know if she has an inventory of her own. I would presume that she does because that's a lot of money. I would guess that she has her own list somewhere. She knows what's in there. And so she's able to compare and contrast. Now, the problem here is that she can't contrast anything with what the government gave her because their receipt list says nothing on there. It just says miscellaneous coins. It doesn't even tell us how many of them. Not 20, not 12, not 40, not 50, nothing. It's just miscellaneous coins times 9. So if they went missing, how would they even know? They wouldn't, because they did an incompetent job here. But you're right. We don't know, right? We don't know. Nadarb says, so why were they in this room searching all the safes in the first place? Did I miss that part, or did they not give a reason? I think I kind of glossed over that, but they got a warrant for one particular box. So the judge actually said, yep, you've investigated this person. You've gone through a traceability. You can connect the funds to this person. You know where they are. You've got access to the bank account. He's does business here, whatever. They got access to an email. They know his safety deposit box has some illegal contraband. So they do get permission for that one. Then when they get access in there, now since they've wrecked the security of the facility, they got to be responsible for all of the other materials there. The warrant said, that's fine. You can take those. You can take those with you, but you can't look inside. You can't search inside. They have done that anyways, and now they're using the contents, what they found, to, it sounds like, investigate other criminal charges. And so this is really, really pernicious, because what happens here? What happens if they find, let's say, oh, we got Robert Gruler's safety deposit box. Oh, there's something interesting in there. And now let's say I never was on their radar. So they weren't looking at me in the first place. And they know that they can't use anything that they found in that safety deposit box to come after me, because they got it as the fruit of a poisonous tree. They got it basically illegally. They're in violation of a federal warrant to search the boxes. They searched it anyways. If they were to charge me with a crime based on what they found in that safety deposit box, my response would be, hey, you should have never opened that up in the first place. That was illegal. That's going to be my defense. That's a motion to suppress. We're going to throw that out. And I think a judge would find in my favor on that. So what you say, okay, well, no harm, no foul. First of all, a lot of harm. I got charged with a crime. I got to hire an attorney. I got to go through all of this process in order to clear my name, which is a lot of work, a lot of effort. But number two, what happens if they don't charge me with a crime for that safety deposit box? But they just say, oh, well, now we know because we looked in your box that we've got some questionable evidence here. So we're just going to start kind of monitoring now. Now we're going to just start sending an agent out to kind of sit outside your house, or we're going to follow you to your office, or we're going to follow you into that bank, or follow you into that store, or to that private lunch, and then gather evidence about you in that manner. Now that evidence is not going to be tainted by the illegality of the unlawful search. So they could still justify criminal charges in a roundabout way to incriminate you. Now, they would have never even heard about you had they not seen what was in your safety deposit box illegally. But because you can't make the connection, and because they found an independent basis for investigating you later down the line, they can go that route without any repercussions or any concerns about a motion to suppress or anything like that, which is why this is problematic. And they know that. They want to get all the names, and then they're going to go launch separate independent investigations and say, oh yeah, we screwed up. Here's all your stuff back. Meanwhile, they've got mountains of evidence from their unlawful search. Very, very corrupt. We have Joe Snow says, how is this government who seized all these safety deposit boxes keeping you or me safe? Why do we need them? Serious question. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess for national security. I mean, what does the government do on a regular basis for you? You wake up every day, you do most everything yourself, and most everything that you do and that is done for you is through private business and private enterprise. And the government just kind of grifts off the top of everything. And they say, no, we're solving all of these things for you. Are they? Or are they taking credit for the solutions that other people and other businesses and things put into society? I think it's strongly the latter. I'm not real sure what we need a government for in many aspects. We have Jeremy Matrita says, in my opinion, if you store valuables in a safety deposit box, you should insure it. The bank does not insure your box. You can get a rider policy on your homeowner's insurance and will be required to take an inventory with pictures is highly recommended. Anything that is out of your immediate control is not 100% safe. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good advice on that. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a safety deposit box. I got to acquire some more assets, but I'm working on that right now. So I'll dictate my safety deposit box policy later in life, I think. We have Sharon Quidney says, if they manage to do this enough people, they might be able to put a dent in the national debt. I know, right? They could. You know, it's sort of like a seizure. Doesn't Marx talk about that? Sort of a seizure of the bourgeois, the proletariat, seize the means of power. Oh gosh, Marx, it's the worst. We have See the Veil says, the lawsuit really needs to focus on forcing the agents to buy from their savings and their yearly salary these gold coins at current value and give them to her in person and offer an apology. Then force those agents to go after the real murderers of Indians in the USA. All right. So you got, I like it, you know, give them the money back and go after the real bad guys. I like that. I think that's a good policy. We have High Desert says, Rob, does the bank have any duty to protect the other boxes that the warrant didn't include? Any exposure for liability? It's a good question, High Desert. I don't think so. I mean, there's sort of, it sounds like they may be the subject of the entire investigation. So it sounds like that organization was, you know, Safety Deposit Vaults USA or whatever the name of it was. And it was actually that organization in its entirety that was the subject of the investigation. So it wasn't like they went into a Wells Fargo or a Bank of America and just needed one safety deposit box. Like they went over the whole thing. So I would guess that they, you know, in other words, liability from on behalf of the bank is the least of their concern, because I think that the entire infrastructure is part of the investigation. This was a big deal, right? This was a big investigation, spanned many agencies, FBI and many others. And so I think that the bigger issue, the exposure, is not civil liability relative to the property rights of the other owners of the boxes. It's more about criminal exposure. It's a good question though. All right, so we've got one great questions. Those all came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thank you for your support over there. It means the world to us. I really do appreciate it. And we're having fun building that community up. We have a workshop coming up on June 12th called Law Enforcement Interaction Training. Hope to see you there. It's free and available to all of you who are subscribers over at Locals. So thank you for that. All right. Last segment for the day. We're going to be talking about Gavin Newsom in California. COVID lockdowns let a lot of things fall through the cracks. We saw a lot of liberties sort of water away, kind of whittle away down to almost nothing. We saw a lot of this out of California. Massive lockdowns, harder than other lockdowns throughout the country. And one of the really problematic limitations that Governor Gavin Newsom imposed was limitations on the free exercise of religion. Specifically, we're talking about a lawsuit involving a church called Harvest Rock Church that sued Gavin Newsom and California for violating their right to practice their religion. This is a very interesting lawsuit. Now, there was a ruling that came out today. Gavin Newsom lost the lawsuit. Big win for religious liberty. Good news. Free exercise. Now, Gavin Newsom and California, they got to pay $1.35 million back for church discrimination. So California people should be very happy about that. More of your money is just being thrown away by stupid politicians. We've got California's embattled Gavin Newsom, has been dealt a fresh blow after a federal judge ordered him to pay $1.35 million over the state's draconian lockdown of 3,000 churches over the coronavirus. Now, this was written by Tori Richards a couple days ago over from the Washington Examiner, if you want to go check them out. In his capacity as governor, Newsom was ordered to pay the costs and attorney's fees, which means the judge was not happy about this. You know, typically, if it's sort of a middle, you have a reasonable debate. You know, I'm unhappy you did this. I'm unhappy you did this. Judge says, all right, you guys both pay for your attorneys. This was reasonable. You cover your own costs. Here, no. Judge said, nope, California, you're paying for that. You're covering costs and attorney's fees because this is so insane. You're paying their attorney's fees, which is warranted, in my opinion. In his capacity, the May 14th order told Newsom and all state officials to stop regulating church attendance. Wait, let me back up. The lawsuit was brought by a Pasadena church. It went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. There was a May 14th order that told Newsom and all state officials to stop regulating church attendance unless a specific set of infection statistics occur. He is the worst governor in America for religious freedom, said Matt Staver, founder of Liberty Counsel, a nonprofit law firm that is representing Harvest Rock Church. The church stayed open during the lockdown. The pastor and parishioners were threatened with daily criminal charges that were up to a year in prison for going to church. This is the nation's first statewide permanent injunction against COVID-19 restrictions on churches and places of worship. Newsom is facing a recall from governors who are angry over his COVID policies. So the nation's first statewide permanent injunction against COVID restrictions. What that means is that the court came down and said, you are not allowed to do this again permanently across the state. Big win. We see here along the way, what did Newsom do? What did he impose? What was the problem? Well, he said that, no, you can't go to church, but you can't sing. No singing. No outdoor churches on top of it. And you can't even have Bible studies. All right. So these are all very, of course, focused on religion. These are directly impacting religion. Religions sing, religions do church outdoors, religions do Bible studies and theology studies. So it's different. It's not a content neutral application. It's not saying that everybody can't sing outside. Everybody can't study. It's saying, no, it's saying you can't go to a Bible study. You say, well, what? Well, what if I want to study geometry? You're going to stop me from studying geometry? Well, they're not talking about banning geometry studies. They're talking about banning Bible studies. And you say, well, I have a First Amendment right that says that you can't infringe on that. Newsom did anyways. The restrictions were only lifted when a series of reprimands came down from the Supreme Court, but Harvest Rock saw itself as an essential business, has stayed fully open since May 31st, 2020. Good for them. The ministry also has South Carolina's satellite churches in downtown LA, Santa Ana, and Corona. Newsom's COVID restrictions intentionally discriminated against churches while providing preferential treatment to many secular businesses and gatherings, Staver said. What's important is this ruling is permanent. He cannot ever do this again. Good. U.S. District Court Judge Jesus Bernal ruled that restrictions would only be allowed on church gatherings if child infections arise 100% statewide. Statewide cases are 26 per 100,000, or the ICU hospital bed capacity falls below 20%. So they set some standards, and they said at that point, the state may only impose restrictions identical to other gatherings. So you can only start, imposing draconian laws that infringe on a fundamental constitutional right if it reaches a certain threshold. And we've sort of talked about this framework about analyzing what the government can do when it infringes on your constitutional rights. We've got different levels of scrutiny. We have what's called a rational basis scrutiny, which is basically saying that the government can impose a law against you if it doesn't infringe on a fundamental constitutional right and they have a rational basis for doing it. So if it's like, well, the government, this doesn't really impact you at all, and this is kind of a thing that government does. We say normally there's a rational basis for this. They want to increase that tax, or they want to pass this law that says you can't do that. That's rational. Doesn't infringe on your right to free speech or your right to religion. So we let them do that. But when we start talking about the more important rights like religion, we have to raise that standard of scrutiny up. We have an intermediate level of scrutiny. And when we talk about the most important rights, we have strict scrutiny. That means we are looking at the government and we're saying, hey, you cannot impact this right unless you go through a very rigorous analysis. And this needs to be the least restrictive rule or law or regulation that you can possibly muster if we're going to allow this to happen. And it has to be absolutely necessary, meaning that there's nothing else you can do to solve this problem except passing this law. So it's a different standard than just, well, do whatever you want, government, whatever's rational. It's very strict. And so what we're talking about here, about these numbers, is sort of cobbling together that standard, saying you can only impose these draconian anti-religion rules if it's absolutely necessary. I mean, if the numbers just get to the point where there's nothing else we can do, that you have to do it, only then maybe we can consider it. Well, Newsom, didn't really abide by that. Any new public health precautions on religious worship services and gatherings at places of worship not in the guidance are included. So the state updated its COVID-19 policy then on May 4th after one of the Supreme Court rulings. They said effective immediately, location and capacity limits on places of worship are not mandatory but strongly recommended. Additionally, the restrictions on indoor singing and chanting are recommended only. Right? So he just changes it. Gavin Newsom has always put the health and well-being of Californians first, resulting in the lowest positivity rates in the country and over 35 million shots in the arm, more than any other state, said Newsom. Settlement resolves the case while providing clarity and certainty to the public, he says. So he lost big time, and he's trying to make up for it. This is a settlement. This resolves the case while providing clarity and certainty to the public around public health standards that are applicable to places of worship following recent rulings by the U.S. Supreme Court. Like he's just following guidance, Oh, well, I mean, I was just trying to follow the rules. And now that I know what they are, thanks to the United States Supreme Court, now we're just going to follow the rules. And I'm glad that we have clarity and certainty now. You know exactly what you were doing. You were punishing religious organizations. You were slapping them in the face single-handedly, talking specifically about banning singing, outdoor worship, and Bible studies. Specifically. It was directed at the religious. You had a vendetta against it. And the Supreme Court said you can't do that. So now you're trying to rewrite history. Not going to allow it here, my friend. This was the original, this is the final judgment. And the permanent injunction. So it is hereby ordered. This is off by the judge, written off by the judge. Harvest Rock Church versus Newsom. Says that the governor of California and all others in active concert or participation with him are hereby permanently enjoined statewide from issuing or enforcing regulations issued in connection with the COVID-19 state of emergency that impose any of these restrictions on places of worship. Cannot do that anymore. Right? And define what those numbers are. We already talked about those. Any new public health precautions on religious worship services and places of worship not in the current guidance, unless those are identified, cannot be allowed. And any restrictions on any religious exercise of singing and chanting, also not allowed anymore. So basically everything he imposed, it's all being undone, which is great news. It is further ordered that the plaintiff are declared the prevailing parties. Big win for the church. Defendant is going to pay the plaintiffs $1.35 million for reasonable attorney's fees and costs. The interest is going to accrue in 60 days from the date that this is signed. So Mr. Gavin Newsom, my friend, you better cut that check quick. Otherwise, you're going to be paying interest. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Can't be retained. Got to pay that money. End of the deal. Signed off on by the honorable, very honorable Jesus Bernal. Good outcome on that. Some good news, right? Some good news from time to time from the justice system. Well done, Judge Bernal. Good outcome. Finally, some pushback from our judges. Let's take some questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have our first one from Sharon Quinn. He says, Newsom is the worst governor, period. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't live there. But everything I see out of that guy is just like, wow. And talk about a fall. I mean, he was, I think, getting primed up for president. Not anymore. We have See the Veil that says, yeah, those funds should be coming out of Newsom's personal bank account, not the taxpayers. Well, I don't think California even cares about taxes. So do they care? I mean, does anybody over there care? I mean, there are people that care, but they all left. They're gone. They're moving out. So everybody else there can just pay these bills all they want. Just, okay, whatever. Pay for everything. We have Chaskow says, who does Gavin think he is? Prime Minister of Canada? No, he's trying. Look, Gavin Newsom is like in a different league, I think. I think what they're doing in Canada is like a whole different ball game. I mean, Gavin Newsom is bad, but what we're seeing out of Canada is like, I don't think you can leave your house. There's a curfew. You can't leave your house. And if you travel to Canada, you have to, I think, sit there for 14 days. I listened to Viva Fry over at on Locals at Viva Barnes Law. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. All right, we got Osak71 says, do you think if more lawsuits were filed, this nightmare would have ended sooner? I don't, unfortunately, Osak. I don't think so. I think that our courts and our judges were just as freaked out as everybody else, and they were going to be defaulting with the government. Look, remember, we have justice. Yes, we have a justice system, and we have a legal, system of courts. We have the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. But they are all part of the same government. Okay, so when they are, we structured it this way, so we have a separation of powers and checks and balances between these three different branches, and we made it three so that you could have two against one and to solve any disputes. Kind of a beautiful system. Except when all of them are in alignment against the citizenry, which is exactly what happened with COVID. All of the legislators were freaked out. So, they were all, buckling to pressure everywhere, just passing whatever laws they could. Same with governors, even conservative governors, most of them, they were all playing ball for a long period of time. Only kind of now are we starting to see some real significant pushback. Most everybody was playing ball, probably for good reason, because we just didn't know a lot in the early days. But there were situations where we had Tom Hatton here. There was a guy here in Arizona who was the CEO of Mountainside Fitness, Hero, filed a lawsuit against the governor here and said, hey, you are discriminating against us. On the same basis here that Harvest Church said, our governor and other people shut gyms down on the basis that there was a lot of people, I don't know what basis. I guess a lot of people are breathing in there and moving and touching things, which I guess is the same thing that happens anywhere else that you go, like a grocery store, fruit aisle, picking up this, putting that down, squeezing that, popping that, whatever. So it's the same concept, but they singled out gyms. Well, why was that? And so Tom Hatton from Mountainside Fitness filed a equal protection claim saying you are treating our business differently than the grocery store right there, or than the hairstylist, or than that golf course. They're all still open, but you're singling us out. That's not allowed. Well, he lost his lawsuit. Why? Because the gyms are not a fundamental right. They're not like a place of worship. But even the places of worship were being sort of nudged aside for the time being due to the courts. So when we ask the government to sort of correct governmental problems, it's kind of like asking the police to investigate themselves and then find that they did something wrong. The government is going to support itself. If you file a lawsuit against the governor, against the state legislature, and you have a good basis for it, and you're in the middle of a crisis, the court's going to come back and say, listen, sorry, it's a good claim, but I got to default with the governor. I got to default with the legislature because they're going to set a precedent now that has to affect everybody in society. So, they're all walking a tightrope. I don't envy them in that position. I was very upset with a lot of what I saw, a lot of poor leadership, I thought, during the COVID era. But, we give people a little bit of leeway on that. And I made a post in Locals today about that this morning. We want to give our leaders some leeway when they act in good faith and they make honest mistakes. It's when they act in bad faith and when they make mistakes and they don't own it or acknowledge it, or they're outright deceptive about it, when it becomes a problem and when I blow a gasket. So, the lawsuits could have continued, but I'm not sure that they would have done much. We have Nadar Blasier says, we got to put something in place so government neglect and corruption isn't paid with tax dollars. It needs to hurt whoever committed the act and hurt their own pocket. That's when Big Pharma gets $1 million fine, but made $500 billion on profits for the year. Doesn't matter to them if it isn't proportioned to them. It's their pockets. Yeah, this is a great point, and we talked about this previous. I forget what the context was, but there was, like Purdue Pharma and a lot of these big pharmaceutical companies, the people who are pushing and peddling the opioids all over the place that killed my brother and many, many other people in this country, they got sort of investigated and they got penalized and they got charged with crimes and they got convicted and all sorts of stuff. And it's like nothing. It's like a couple $1 million here and there. It's tip money for these people. It's the cost of doing business, and it's very unfortunate, but it's all part of this. It's all part of the system, right? These big corporations, they just funnel the money right back to the politicians who keep the grift going. We have Sharon Quidney says, don't forget that one of the principal aims of Marxism is the elimination of religion and the replacement of worship of and loyalty to God with worship of and loyalty to the state. Yep. It is the red godlessness of Marxism. It's the worst. We have Want to Know says, Rob, in Oregon, curfew is still on. We have a strain of COVID that comes out after 10 or 12, depending on the business. Yeah, that's an interesting new strain. It's weird. It's like only certain areas, like churches, it really affects you in churches, really affects you in gymnasiums. Also, just gets like crazy wild after about 10 o'clock at night. It's COVID time. COVID wants to party. They're night owls out there, and they're going hog wild. So you have to be safe in your home, like a good little peasant sheep. Thank you for that. So I'm sorry to hear that. Want to Know. I can't believe that Oregon is still on curfew. Curfew. Right now, it's May 2021. Wild stuff. All right, all of those great questions came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. As you know, we are totally demonetized here on YouTube. So if you want to support the show, the place to do that is at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I appreciate it. I try to add more value over there by posting stuff, and I'm trying to sort of increase that a little bit, but I'm also really excited about some of my other projects like the crypto channel and some of the other things that we're working on. So if you want to support the show, that's the place to do that. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com really means the world to me. I want to welcome 2 new people who are in the process of doing that or have already done it. We have Rocksteady is in the house. Welcome, Rocksteady. Grateful for your support, and I'm glad that you joined us. Same with you there, Nick AF. Nick AF. Whew. It's not like a little Nick, like medium Nick. It's Nick AF. Hard. So welcome to you, Nick. Glad that you're here with us. Great questions from those of you who are on the board. You know who you are. You keep the show lively and well, and I really appreciate it. If you want to sign up at Locals, you can get a lot of good stuff, including a copy of my book, which is down there at the bottom left. It is called Beginning to Winning: How to Fight Your Case and Succeed in the Criminal Justice System. You can download a copy of the slides that we went through. You can download a copy of my impeachment party document, as well as my existence system document that we heard somebody's working on today. It's available for you for free if you support us over there at Locals. We share links throughout the day. I posted a nice little, what did I post today? I don't know that it was nice, but I did post something today about COVID, because we can talk about some things over there that we can't talk about on this channel. So I wrote a little text thing. So go check that out if you're interested in that. We also have a monthly meetup coming up. We had our last one May 22nd last weekend, but we have our next one coming up June 26th. This is available for anybody who is supporting us over at locals.com. Totally free. A lot of fun. We had a good time. And we have another event coming up Saturday, June 12th. This is also for free for local subscribers. It's called Law Enforcement Interaction Training. We're going to be talking about how to deal with the police. So I'm still putting the finishing touches on this, but I think it should be fun. Hopefully I have my technology figured out. But I want you to come and join it, because I want to start doing more of these things. We talk about Locals like a community. We should sort of be acting like it from time to time. And so I appreciate all of those of you who are helping us to build that. Every single time that we sort of move somebody off of, maybe sort of relying on the big tech, off of YouTube, off of Facebook, off of Twitter, we're kind of nudging everybody to migrate to different platforms. And every time you do, it's like one new brick in the nice structure of a better place, a better community. And we really do mean that, appreciate it a lot. So that is it for me. Quick reminder, a couple other new channels down below. Got a new crypto channel that we just talked about yesterday. The IRS is trying to hack into your wallets. So they actually put out a request for information. They're looking for security experts so that the IRS can build a sort of a crypto hacking team that they can crack into your wallets and steal all your cryptocurrency. So that video came out yesterday if you want to check that out. A lot of fun going on over there. Also, a lot of new videos are coming out on our Arizona Law channel. So I know most of you, of course, are not charged with crimes in Arizona, but if you happen to know somebody that is, first and foremost, we would love it if you sent them our way so that we could have the opportunity to help, but they may also be interested in that channel where they can learn about Arizona criminal cases. We have a whole great team of people here at the R&R Law Group. We're located in Scottsdale. We offer free case evaluations. We can help with any type of criminal charge in Arizona, things like DUIs, misdemeanors, drug offenses, felonies, traffic offenses, old criminal records, clearing up mugshots, restoring rights, right to vote, possess a firearm. There's a whole list of things that we can do. We're super passionate about it, and we would love the opportunity to help. So if you happen to know anybody in the state of Arizona who does need some help, we would be honored and humbled if you sent them our way. It would really mean the world to us. And my friends, that is it from me for the day. We are going to be right back here, same time, same place tomorrow. It's going to be at 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. for that one Florida man out there, and all of the rest of you on the East Coast. Thank you so much for being with us today. Have a tremendous evening. Eat well, sleep well. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.